What's up, everyone? I'm Hunter Dola here from Philly Insider Podcast. Today, we're predicting the 26-man roster for the wild card round, which starts on Friday. I believe the rosters will be released Friday morning, if I'm not mistaken. So we really won't find out till game day what the Phillies are going to do. That being said, I think most of the roster is pretty clear cut and dry, but I will be talking about, who's going into the playoffs hot, who I'm concerned about, who's going to be used situationally, things of that nature, as well as the rotation a little bit. We'll get into that obviously first, but we have a lot of guys who, are they going to be a long man? Are they going to be an opener at some point? Are they going to pitch the next round? We'll talk about that. First off, let's start with the rotation. Zach Wheeler is back. I believe he pitched 5 innings in his last start. He looked great. We'll see how long he can go in that game one. I think obviously the plan is for him to go as long as he can. Obviously, you don't want to you want to work him, try to work him back, obviously, but there's got to be a level of urgency as well heading into game one. It's an opportunity to go up 1-0 in an opposing ballpark. Obviously, the bats will be part of that, but Wheeler has been tremendous all season. Not quite a Cy Young candidate like he was last year, but still pretty phenomenal. So obviously, I think he's the game one guy. Nola's going to pitch game two. He's going into the playoffs on a great note. Obviously, had a perfect game bid for 6 2/3. Pretty amazing. And then you have probably Suarez in game three. Rob Thompson did hint at the fact that they might be willing to use a right-handed opener, given the fact you have a lot of good right-handed bats in that Cardinals lineup. Now, I understand that. I really do. I'm not saying it's a terrible idea. That being said, you gotta have your best arm on the mound, and I don't think putting Nick Nelson in as an opener or Kyle Gibson in as an opener gives you a shot to win that game in three. I think there's a real chance that gets out of hand. And look, if one of them pitches as an opener and proves me wrong, I will be the happiest person on the planet. But Kyle Gibson, how many times has he given up 7 earned runs, let alone 7 earned runs in September? And Nick Nelson, look, I think he's had his good moments as a long man when, we've gone down early, probably in some of those games that Kyle Gibson put us out of early. But at the same time, I just don't think that's a smart move. I really don't. I get it. I get that there's the righty on lefty advantage, but man, here's the thing. Syndergaard, I don't think that's your best option either. I will be a little less upset just because I think Syndergaard can at least minimize the damage and keep you in games. But also, I should note, Kyle Gibson, I believe the Cardinals were the team he gave up back-to-back-to-back-to-back home runs off of. So just a terrible idea, in my opinion. But Syndergaard also, look, I mean, a guy who can't hold runners on first base very well, even with the best catcher in baseball, yikes, that's a recipe for disaster in a postseason environment. So, I mean, Syndergaard would be my choice if we had to choose an opener. I think Eflin's I think he's going to be a bullpen arm at this point. I think he's very fit for that role. But I think you got to let Ranger Suarez just go to work here if it comes down to that game three and do his job. I mean, I understand the reasoning for an opener, but Ranger Suarez has been a gamer all season. I know he didn't pitch well against the Astros. Tough way to, end the season on that note. But I still have confidence in him, and I still think he's a guy who, when the pressure mounts, he is at his best. And I just want to see him, I want to see him start that game three. Maybe I'll be proven wrong. And then I have Bailey Falter kind of as a note here. I could see him maybe being used out of the bullpen in the series. I wouldn't rule it out. And then maybe Noah Syndergaard starts a game in the NLDS if we make it there. I could also see Bailey Falter just being the guy in the NLDS and Syndergaard being in the pen. It's going to be interesting how, what happens there. Is Falter going to be used out of the pen? Is Syndergaard going to be used out of the pen? And what does that mean for Nick Nelson? Because, I think Nick Nelson, I could see him being on the – let's just go to the bullpen while I'm talking about it. I could see him being on that round one roster, and then if they're not planning on using Syndergaard out of the pen, and he's strictly just, okay, if we get to the NLDS, he's going to be one of our starters in that game, then I understand if he's not on the roster. Otherwise, if that's not the plan and they're just planning to have Bailey Falter as the guy in the NLDS, I'd probably not have Nick Nelson on this roster. I think he had a rough second half. His first half wasn't amazing or anything, but I think he at least was good in his role in the first half as a long man. So That's kind of my thoughts on that situation. I have this divided up by setup men and middle relief slash long relief pitchers. Setup, I don't have a closer category because, again, we're going closer by committee here. So any of these guys could really close. Look, Jose Alvarado, see him in the thumbnail there. I mean, he's just been tremendous as this season has gone on. Second half specifically, that cutter has done wonders for him. I wouldn't be opposed to seeing him in a save situation. Now, do I think that it could turn out rough? Yeah, I do think that could take a turn for the worse just because we've seen Alvarado have a lot of success in the back end, more so in a setup role, in an eighth inning, seventh inning role, not as much in that closer role. But if they put him out there, I mean, look, I think that might be your best option. Second best might be Zach Eflin, who I know he had that one little blip versus the Nationals, and he really hasn't pitched much out of the bullpen. And I know some of you are going to say, oh, he closes out one game versus the Astros to make the playoffs, and you have him that high on the list. It's not necessarily in any order there. I just wanted to point that out. I mean, I just think Eflin, look, I think he's probably going to be a high leverage arm of the bullpen in the playoffs. And granted, look, there isn't much of a sample size. Like we're going to find out how good he really is in that role. I always said as long as we've done the podcast that if we ever got in the playoffs, I thought Zach Eflin was going to step up to the plate. And that was as a starter. I really do think that's going to be the case as a bullpen guy. I hope that's the case. I would love it for him. I think he could be a really, really good weapon to have. Sir Anthony's in there. Not going into the playoffs on a great note, to be honest. He has been shaky in the month of September. I am concerned about him, but he has been reliable all season long. So you're going to have to go to him at some point in this series. I believe that. I do believe there's going to be a situation where he's going to have to be called upon and he's going to have to get the job done. David Roberson, also a guy who's not been as good in the Phillies uniform as he was before he came here. I'm concerned about him, but I also think he's going to be another guy. When his number's called, he's going to have to step to the plate, and I believe his number will be called at some point in the series. And then Brad Hand, they are expecting him to come back in this series. Look, there's limits to him. He can't come in with runners on base, and probably more of a lefty specialist. I wouldn't say he was bad against righties this year, but I don't know. I mean, I'd take the four other guys, especially Hand coming off an injury. I think it's risky to put him in one of these games, but I won't be surprised if the Phillies do. I will say, Philly Rob, credit to him. I mean, he got us to the playoffs and, he had a great second half of the season, but bullpen decisions, I think, were questionable at times. And then we go to the middle relief. First off, the first two guys are really my middle relief guys, Connor Brogdon and Andrew Bellotti. Connor Brogdon, we're talking about bad September, just a horrendous month of September. When he's been used in higher leverage situations, this is just off my eye test. I don't have the numbers on it. I haven't been too comfortable with him in those situations. So I really don't think. I hope we don't have to see him. I mean, these guys here in the middle relief, long relief, maybe Kyle Gibson pitches at some point, but I don't think these guys. I would really hope we don't see these guys very much in the wild card series, if at all. Same with Bellotti. I think he's a guy who middle relief, he gets the job done, but higher leverage situations, I don't love him being called upon. Nelson, I already talked about. Gibson, I kind of already talked about a little bit, but I anticipate this being the bullpen for the first round. And all in all, with the rotation of the bullpen, there's 13 pitchers, which I believe, regardless of what combinations it is, I believe they will have an extra arm. They're going to go 13 pitchers. That being said, I would like if they could use that extra bench spot. We'll go to the bench and line up here because I would like to see Derek Hall, a power bat, on that bench. I don't think he's going to be there. That's my gut feeling, but I would love to have him there. Let's talk about the lineup first. Look, there's not really much to talk about here. Schwarber, Hoskins, Harper, Realmuto, Bohm, Castellanos, Marsh, Segura, Stott. I mean, that's kind of been the regular lineup when everyone's been healthy. I think that's pretty clear cut and dry. I don't think there's much to go over there. How about the bottom of the lineup we have this year? Having Marsh, Segura, and Scott to turn it over to the top of the order, and just guys who can get on base and guys who can make an impact at the bottom of the order and give Schwarber some RBI situations to come up in. So that's really all I got to say on the lineup. As far as the bench goes, look, we know Stubbs has been tremendous this year as a backup catcher. We may see him at some point in the playoffs, depending on how many days in a row we're playing and all that stuff. Probably not a ton, but we know if his number needs to be called, I think he can do some damage and at least be a solid fill-in for JT. I'm confident in that. utility guys, and Mundo Sosa is supposed to be back as well, just like Brad Hand. So we'll see if that comes true. I would love if that happened. Sosa was so impactful down the stretch. I mean, when we got him, I was like, okay, I like it. Like we needed a defensive utility guy, and Munoz and Camargo, they could definitely be upgraded from. And man, I mean, Sosa definitely a defensive upgrade and a base running upgrade. My goodness, what a defense! I mean, sorry, not defense. What he's done at the plate, I did not expect down the stretch. So credit to him. Anytime he gets on base, I say this a lot. I sound like a broken record, but anytime he gets on base, he is a threat to score. And that's huge in a play. I mean, I always talk about Roman Quinn. If you get in the playoffs, that's a pinch runner to have. Talk about Sosa. Now you have a guy who can hit a little bit, and he's probably going to be that pinch runner defensive replacement type guy at the end of these games. Huge to have a guy like that. Maton, look, he's been a spark plug all year long. I like him as a pinch hitter. I like him in certain situations. Defensively, he can move around a little bit. I'm excited to see if he gets any shots in the playoffs this year. And then Matt Bierling, look, I mean, this guy has made play after play. I know he's been inconsistent at the plate, but that throw at home to throw out the runner, Starling Marte on the Mets, the big situational hits he's had this year. While he has had some slumps, I credit him for the way he's come up clutch in certain situations. And also, outfield, obviously, we need a backup outfielder with, especially late in games. We're going to need that defensive replacement for Castellanos, most likely, which is tough. But yeah, I mean, look, guys, that's my playoff roster. I believe here we've got 13 guys as well, 9 and then 4 bench players. So that comes out to 26 evenly. Let me know what you guys think, who you guys think might make the playoff roster, anything you disagree with me on. I'd love to hear your thoughts because look, I think there are absolutely a few spots here where I'm like, yeah, I could see this guy getting in over this guy. Maybe you have Dalton Guthrie. I didn't even talk about him. Maybe you have him getting a spot. I don't see much room for him, but who knows? Let me know what you guys think. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. I know the picture quality wasn't great. It was better on my phone when I uploaded it, but hopefully you guys could read everything okay. I thank y'all for watching. And yeah, Phillies playoffs start Friday. It's a special feeling, guys, to be back in the postseason. I can't describe it right now. So God bless y'all. Go Phils, ring the bell. We will see y'all later. Next up, watch out for the hype video coming on Thursday. Peace.